Okay, looks like I'm live. This is my name is Jason McChristian, and this is my third video for composing. I wanted to start off by saying you can find my music at my website, www.jasonmcchristian.com, and you can also find me on LinkedIn. You can obviously find me on Facebook, Twitter, and SoundCloud and YouTube. Okay, so in this video I just wanted to take a moment to talk about what I do when I'm actually orchestrating a work. When I'm composing, I do what I kind of call sketching, and that is where I essentially throw down the very basic, the very bare minimum of musical ideas directly onto the computer. I don't really use paper and pencil until I'm actually beginning the process of orchestrating. But when I'm initially writing, I find it's much easier to be able to write directly into the computer program. The computer program I'm using, by the way, is Sibelius, and it's the updated 2018 version. So when I'm talking about orchestrating, I'm not talking about sketching. And with orchestrating, I am talking about specifically the material is finished, and now I'm getting an idea as to exactly what instruments are going to play what. Are there moments where balance is an issue? So if I assign something, let's say, to the flute, is the background thin enough or composed in such a way to allow the flute to be heard in a reasonable manner? And there's a lot of ways that I can make adjustments of that. I can adjust the textures. I can adjust the octaves that the background instruments are playing in. If they're playing in the same octave or near the same octave as the flute may not be heard so well. I can also change the actual dynamics that are assigned. So I might want to give the flute forte, and I might want to give the other instruments piano. That sort of, to me, is a last-minute, a last-ditch effort to adjust volume, though. I really like to focus a lot on the texture and the range of the instruments involved, and also taking into consideration the range that the particular instruments thrive best in. So if I'm writing for a low flute, it's not going to be heard as well as writing for a high flute. So I take that into consideration how I'm orchestrating. So what I have here is an example of a moment in a work that I'm working on, And on the left side here, measures 2 and 3 are literally how I sketched it out onto the computer, the musical idea. And then on the right here, again, measures 2 and 3. This is the final version having been orchestrated in a way where I'm considering balance and I'm considering all the players available to me. So this is for a movement in my Frazetta suite, which I had talked about in 2 previous videos. And this particular movement is titled Leaping Lizards. And again, it's based on a Frazetta painting. I suggest you check it out. It's really interesting. And perhaps in a later video, I'll talk about my musical decisions, which I think help depict what I see going on in the painting itself. But for now, let's continue. So this is the sketched version. And really, I'm going to talk about how I dealt with this trumpet line. This trumpet line, as you can see, is trumpet 1. Again, sketching, I just throw down. I say, this is what I want the trumpets to play in some fashion, and I'm going to set it down. And the horns were not used here. This beginning opening section is very dramatic. It's actually in the manner of a 1950s monster movie soundtrack. Very dramatic. As you can see here, I have G minor with a major 7 on top, and it's actually starting with that major 7. So it's very kind of cliche throwback to that time of melodrama and exaggerated ideas. So what I did when I came back to orchestrate, which, by the way, I don't actually truly begin orchestrating until the work is finished, until I have a real clear idea of how it's what the trajectory of the work is. So I came back and I said, well, I certainly don't want just trumpet 1 to play, because as you can see here, these are, by the way, all double forte. As you can see here, I have the first trumpets against all the trombones. And by the way, the orchestration is also against the upper woodwinds trilling and using flutter tongue, as well as xylophone doubling on rolls. So very dramatic, and the timpani is also rolling in the background at about a mezzo piano or so. So I felt that the first trumpet was not going to cut through, especially in its lower range here, the F and the G. As it reaches the B flat and the D and the F sharp, they're going to cut through just fine. So to combat that problem, I said, well, let me have the second trumpets play as well. And I also want to have the third trumpets play on the lower register. Okay, so this way, the trumpets are just playing in the lower register. They're not having to jump up, not having to change their embouchure too dramatically. They're able to kind of focus on that particular range. And of course, I said, well, the third trumpets aren't going to be able to play enough or play loud enough in that range. This is a rather softer range of the instrument. So I then assigned the horns to that range as well. Okay, this is a transposed score. They're actually playing the exact same pitches: concert E, concert F, concert A flat. Okay, so I had first and third horn doubling in that range. Okay, to help out. Also, what I did was I didn't want to just have the trumpet play F sharp G and then have the second trumpets take over. This is an effect that we call dovetailing. And it's not really a musical effect so much as it's a practical playing effect. What it does is if you're sitting next to players and you're passing a passage off to them, it's a good idea to have the final note, whatever the final note is of the first group, be played at the same time that the first note of the second group is playing. So as you can see here, this written B flat is played by both third and second trumpet. This allows for greater synchronization, coordination between parts. Had I not had the third trumpets play this, there might have been a bit of a space caused between the G and the written B flat here in the trumpets. Other issues could also arise. By not giving the third trumpets a downbeat, they would have had to more vaguely figure out where those triplets are placed. But by giving them something like pa, 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 giving them some sort of a note to lead to helps them more accurately measure out the triplets. This is something that really, really good orchestrators and composers do. It's something that I find very, very important. Okay, so let's go on here. So, like I said, I have the first and third horn doing the same thing that the third trumpet is playing. And the reason why I only have first and third horns, by the way, they are marked a double forte, not in this particular version of the score, though. But the reason why I have them doubling, again, is because of lower range. But I only have the first and third horns playing that because later on, for the record, this is just an extracted, the brass have been extracted from the score, so you're not seeing the actual first score here. But at any rate, here on this system, these are a continuing first horn, and this is a continuing third horn line. So when the second and fourth horn come in, they're playing in a much lower register. So if I had horn 1 and 2 here and horn 3 and 4 here, after just a brief moment, they would have to drop down an octave and a fifth, which is not unreasonable, but I am allowing for a bit of a safety net here by removing the second and fourth horn, and that's why I've limited this to first and third. The other issue is I don't want the horns to overpower the trumpets. Probably not much of an issue, but it was something I had considered. All right, so let's just go ahead and listen to both versions. Again, the playback is not going to determine exactly what the live players will sound like in terms of balance, but I think that you'll see that the second version, the orchestrated version, is much more desirable. Here we go. And you'll notice how the lower notes, at least on the playback in Sibelius, are drowned out. They're lost. And that would certainly happen in a live setting. And now let's listen to this version. Great. And what I like about the second version also is it creates an interesting color, because now the horns, though they're in the higher range, they start to get a little bit more trumpet-like, a little more brassy. It does create this interesting color change throughout these 5 notes that automatically makes it more interesting to listen to. And of course, isn't that what all composers are shooting for? So I hope you enjoyed this video. Super short this time, but I just wanted to give a brief example as to what I mean when I'm talking about sketching out a work or actually orchestrating a work. A lot of creativity goes into making decisions like this, even though they seem very practical. All right, thank you very much. Bye.